A journey into the underground with Adam X. Sonic Room Podcast. Hi, I'm Adam X. Welcome to today's episode where Detroit electro techno legend Keith Tucker, aka DJ K-1, joins me for a chat. Keith is a true veteran of Detroit electro. He first appeared on Juan Atkins Metroplex imprint back in 1990, and then later became a core member of AUX88. During his artist tenure, he has recorded solo under several aliases, including Alien FM and Optic Nerve. This is a great conversation about all things electro, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you, man. It's been a minute. Last time was at a Trezor dinner, I guess, a few years ago, right?
It was a while ago.
I don't remember what the event was.
It was for, I was over playing live with AUX88, I believe.
Yeah, but I was playing the same night. I don't remember. I must have been playing the same night to be at the dinner.
It might have been a different
You might have been, I think, you playing up in Globus.
Yeah,
right?
Yep, it was Globus. Always Globus.
So, yeah, it's been good to see you, man. And back in Detroit. It's always nice to come back here. I love it here, you know.
Glad to see you, Shane. Yep.
Been here many times over the years. So let's take it back, man. You're my first electro artist on the full electro. There's some people that made a few electro tracks, but
I feel honored.
Electro.
I feel honored. I stuck with electro.
So,
you know, I still do techno, but I still stuck with electro as well. Yeah.
So let's go back into the roots of it all for you. Your first record was on Metroplex, was Frequency, right?
It was Frequency, and it was called Television with me and a DJ called Jesse Anderson. Yeah.
And so what was your roots of leading up to that record? Like, how long were you making music prior to getting on Metroplex, and how did you meet Juan, and what was your influences?
Well, for me, I was a mobile DJ at the time in the 80s and early 80s, and you know, I was just trying to get into I started playing a lot of that type of music in Detroit, and then one day I just met up with a like-minded person, some other guys that we all liked it, you know, and I had to play the music at parties. So I ended up starting like, okay, let me get a drum machine, try to figure this whole thing out. But to make a long story short, when I finally was able to get up the money to get a sampler, I bought a Roland S10 sampler. My first drum machine was a Kawai R50E R100, and I had a Casio CZ101. And once I did my first little demo, I turned it into Metroplex. The funny thing is, Marty Bonds was working at Metroplex and Anthony Shakir. Got a call from them. They pulled it out of the garbage because they would just take the tapes, anybody send stuff and just throw it away. They wouldn't even listen to it. So they thought it was kind of funny to just grab some stuff out and listen to it while Juan was out of the country. So they put the tape in, and then a couple of days later, I got a call. And that was with me and Jesse Anderson. I was already in AUX88, but at that time we had a different name at the time. And then I was just doing solo stuff. So I ended up getting my first deal in 1990 on Metroplex as Frequency.
Was the earliest stuff under the different name on AUX88 ever out on vinyl?
No, we never had anything out on vinyl. We were RX7 was the name of the group. And we ended up changing our name, and it was in 88. We created the name AUX88, but our first record didn't come out till, I believe, 93.
That would be Bass Magnetic, right?
Yeah, that was Bass Magnetic on Direct
Beat.
The
hell out of that.
Hey, you know what? We re-released it. We re-released it a few years ago, yeah. But yeah, that was how it happened. I was already with those guys when I first started out doing electro. We were going around doing talent shows, high schools, colleges, doing electro, but we were doing cover tunes. We were doing Planet Rock. We were doing some Hashim. We was doing all of those tracks that were out there, and we were doing live versions of them. But back then we didn't have a sequencer, so we were actually just playing them all alone. But that's how we honed our skills.
So were you big on the New York electro, like Arthur Baker, John Rowe,
yes.
Strafface,
Definitely. Because I mean, I was a DJ, so I wasn't really that great at playing keyboards yet. I was programming beats and stuff, and then when I got with Black Tony and Tommy Hamilton, and we ended up doing AUX88. We came up with that name, but I ended up leaving the group before we got signed and put out the stuff with Juan Atkins on Metroplex. So, I mean, we were into everything: Miami, New York, and plus Detroit had his own sound with Juan Atkins. So we really were into the Cybertron Model 500 and Kraftwerk. We wanted to keep it that whole electronic type of mysterious, serious, spacey sound that was, created in Detroit, kind of. Yeah. But we did look to, we were really heavily into, at the time, we really kind of liked a lot of freestyle too. We was into a lot of freestyle music, but especially the LA sound with, we liked Nucleus. That was another group we liked.
Oh,
And
yeah.
lo and behold, went on to meet them and hang out on them and stuff. That's cool. Yeah.
And what about all this like LA stuff that Dr. Dre was producing back in the day?
Yeah, because
NWA.
With me being a DJ, I had to play hip hop and any type of electro stuff that was coming out. So we was heavy into 2 Live Crew, Dr. Dre, Surgery, all that type of stuff. Unknown DJ, Professor X. Just everything that was coming out of there. The whole what was that label? Yellow and Red. Techno Cut, which is Andre Manuel's label. Yeah, we were into a lot of that stuff. Yeah.
I don't think this stuff really ever made it in New York back in the day. New York was very New York centric when it came to electro, right? Sound. It was like growing up. I mean, I wasn't DJing back then, but I was writing graffiti in '84, and my brother was DJing, of course, earlier on, right? 81, 82, 83. Right. So he was playing stuff, but I'd never heard any of those records till I got into techno, and then in the early '90s, researching and didn't know anything about LA electro.
A lot of that stuff, I was talking to somebody the other day, a lot of the stuff was regional. It really was like certain places played certain things. I know I used to spend a lot of time, I had family in West Virginia and DC. And it was like they were really into the go-go sound. But here in Detroit, people were like, go-go, what is that? I think New York might have known a little bit. New York was a little bit on everything. But Detroit was only into, they really wasn't into hip hop that much. They were all about dancing. It was like anything that was fast, that whole Cybertron, because we had Electrifying Mojo, anything that was fast, that had any type of craft working, European sound, that's what everybody was into in Detroit. And when I heard it, I was just blown away, like, wow, how can we do this? Because it took me years to find out that Cybertron was even from Detroit. I didn't even know that till I actually read the record.
This is a record that was known in New York. That made it. That made it there. The Dre stuff didn't make it there, but Clear was,
which it was totally different though. It was more, I think the Dr. Dre stuff was more sample based too. They had like a lot of samples in the tracks. Yeah. But I love it that I was from Detroit, and it was just like we were always taught once you first started doing the music, it was like we didn't do any sampling. It was just like, no, when you turn it in a tape, we let somebody hear some music. Well, did you make some new sounds? What did you use for doing that? That's what it was all about. So I love that I came up with that. Whenever we even had a sampler, we would just sample our voices. That was about it. So I liked that you had to do that in Detroit. But it was kind of cool to hear the 2 Live Crew and then hear the whole New York thing. Hashim, oh my God. That track,
Out of the Fish.
Ollie Not Fish was just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the chance to meet Jerry Khalees too. Yeah.
A lot of people don't know too, and we should say that Dr. Dre, before they were doing NWA and they went on the gangster hip hop rap stuff, they were making electro.
As the world-class wrecking crew. The world-class wrecking crew.
For the people that don't know, it's something you should check out if you don't know about that. Yeah. And then there was the Miami bass thing, which also I didn't really know much about until around 1990 when I got into techno. There was a record that my brother was breaking that like Carl Cox and all them followed him from playing at the raves. It was called Success and Effect.
Oh yeah,
I had the Amen break with the electro, and my brother was dropping that in England at raves, and that became like a huge anthem that was sampled in all the breakbeat kind of electro records in the UK. And I didn't know anything about like Dynamix 2 and any of that.
Oh, okay.
But up until around 91.
Because they were pretty popular. Yeah, Dynamix 2 was pretty popular. It's funny how things just turn and change, because I met all those guys and know them, and it was just like talking to them was like, no, man, we had a movement going on where we were. Then we had a movement going on where we were. In Detroit, it was like, you couldn't we weren't trying to sound like New York. New York wasn't trying to sound like Detroit. Detroit wasn't trying to sound like Miami. Miami wasn't trying to sound like Detroit. Detroit wasn't trying to sound like LA. LA wasn't trying to sound like Detroit. That's what and same thing with Chicago. Chicago had their own sound. And I'm glad that we all kind of took it upon ourselves to kind of create the whole niche that was going on in the area.
Well, one of the recurring themes in a lot of the podcasts that I always say is that the music was very regional, whether it was in America or even in Europe. I mean, Germany had its own sound, like Frankfurt had their kind of EBM techno sound in the early days, like Erotico, Rejecto, and all this like really kind of almost EBM, Kraftwerkian type techno. And then there was the Belgian techno coming out of New Beat, and then The
Got you.
Dutch were more kind of doing the Detroit thing a
Yeah.
bit, right?
Even the
Like,
Italian disco. I loved
yeah,
Italian disco. But what I missed the most, I always say this in interviews, was when I was DJing and when we were coming up, we played everything.
yeah.
I hate that now with this. We got a room for this, a room for that. And it's like, no, I still DJ that way. I still play a little bit of everything and I can still move a crowd. I don't know why people don't have enough balls to do that.
I love playing 5-hour sets. I'm doing 1 in 2 weeks. It's going to be
Thank
old school
you.
house. It's going to be techno. It's
Yeah.
going to be everything. It's I can't stand this linear DJing. It's already so easy to DJ now. So the
Right.
real way to flex skills now
Yeah.
is to show diversity in the music knowledge that you have
Right.
and be able to play a little bit of
Yeah.
everything that's underground and good with and
Yeah.
old and new and mix it all in.
And it actually made us all better by listening to all this different stuff, because you could take little pieces from somebody, but then you start realizing, like, wow, I really like, hey, I can get into some trance or some drum and bass or different, you got to listen to different things to expand your mind and make your music better, because I was brought up mostly, I mean, like I said, we was in Detroit, so we heard early, Strings of Life, Cybertron, Kevin Saunderson, all of that stuff. That's what we were hearing. But we were really, I'm from the east side of Detroit, so they were really into the whole electro 130, 135, beats per minute. That's what everybody was into, and they still like that to this day. But when they found out that a lot of the stuff was made in Detroit, I think that's when it started booming. Then you got the DJ Godfathers, the DJ Assaults, and um, Detroit in Effect came along, and then another thing that happened in Detroit, which pushed us more, was Drexia. We started at the same
Same time.
time as
Yep.
Drexia, but we never tried to sound like Drexia. Drexia never tried to sound like us. We always tried to have, we were, a lot of people used to say, well, we sound like Cybertron or Model 500, but we always had our own sound.
But you guys were doing the cool shit because you guys were taking the Miami bass and putting it in. And you
Right.
guys were making the electro more dynamic,
Yep.
where you had the low bass,
Yep.
you had the mid range
Yep.
and the highs, and
Yep.
it wasn't more flatter like the earlier Detroit electro stuff
Got
that
you.
wasn't having the
Yep.
bottom.
And we did that intentionally because when we first formed, I was always the guy that was really Cybertron, Kraftwerk. Tommy Hamilton was the guy who did Miami bass and LA. He liked the heavy beats and stuff. And he just used to listen to a lot of the New York style stuff. So he got more into the beat programming. So we like both of those. That's how to coin the phrase techno bass, which is not our phrase. Dynamics 2 created that phrase. And we took that like, okay, techno bass. That's exactly what it should be. Only difference was with Dynamics 2, they did a lot more, they did sampling. But they sampled other songs. We made a point to not sample anybody's songs. We made our own music. And that was due to when we finally met Juan Atkins. They was like, hey man, you gotta make the techno line, you gotta make the ARPs and all of that. So that was I think that was something that made us stand out. And we did vocals. That's something that a lot of people wouldn't do.
Before we go into the Aux 88, because I
Mhm.
like to also follow a little bit of a timeline, right?
Got you.
So in 1990, I know there was a record that was big from Germany here called Year 2001, Cyborg Unknown. You know this track? By
I have that
PCP
track.
Deluva,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And there's a video online where people are line dancing in Detroit. It's in a club here, and they're all on this kind of like platform, like line dancing back and forth.
That's the
What
dance. That was back then. That was a TV show. It's an offset of Soul Train, but it's our little local show called The Dance Show.
Because that blows my mind watching. I've showed that to people that don't know, and that
Listen.
is incredible.
Listen, that's the show in Detroit that everybody claims they don't watch, but they did watch it because they play everything. They played everything. Was all about, year 2001. You heard Cybertron, you heard Kraftwerk. You might have heard, it was just everything that Mojo was playing, but it was mostly all 130, beats per minute. They played the Charivari, all that stuff, man. But that was another thing. Watching that show and then hearing your song on that show was amazing because that's what the East Side in Detroit was like. The way they danced on that show, that's what a party was. Now you could play some hip hop. People probably dance a little bit, but when you played the fast stuff, everybody was on the floor.
I mean, that's amazing. It was completely the opposite. If you tried to play techno in the black community in New York, that was not going to happen.
Right.
Like, what the hell is this shit?
Yep. I mean, I used to, I was actually a DJ in some hip hop groups at one time. And it was like, I love hip hop, I still do, but it was just like something about Detroit they want to dance, and the women like to dance. So if the women want to dance, then the man will follow. Simple as that. But it was the dance show, and it's getting a lot more. People are starting to find out about it on YouTube because there's so many videos. Even one of the guys, Black Tony, he used to dance on the dance show. So some old footage of him dancing there too. Yeah, and Tommy used to be in a group called the Devo Dancers. So they actually been on there and danced before. They were doing the JIT, which is
yeah, I know the JIT.
The JIT, which started in Detroit. Yeah. Yeah.
That was a style. That was a dance style.
It was a style of dancing. There was like pop locking, but moving with faster movements with their feet and stuff, shuffling feet.
And then there was a Techno record that was called the JIT.
Yep. And that was kind of like.
Did they name that the JIT, or was it already called the JIT? Did the track call that?
No. The song, the dance style was already called the JIT, which it was a group called the Jitterbugs, like way early on, created that style of dancing. So I think when Techno made that, it was kind of like, that's a Detroit thing, JIT. So they coined that phrase a second time when it was kind of like JIT was starting to die. And then when that song came back out, everybody else started JITting again. Yeah. The Techno was amazing too. That's one of the few groups I didn't know. I knew the guys from Drexel. I never met the guys from Techno. And they were from Detroit.
Yeah, they did some great records of Soul Waves. And
that Back from the Future. They got a track called Back for the Future that I play in my sets now. Yeah.
That's a classic, really classic stuff. So back to 93, Ox 88, I remember the album very well. It's playing it.
That's a bass magnetic. Yep.
And that was the start of.
Yeah, and when it was a double album too. That's what we were really surprised. But the Burton Brothers, Octave One, created the label Direct Beat. And they said, we're going to put a lot of y'all stuff out because nobody's doing anything like that in Detroit. And lo and behold, I think that was right when Drexel got signed with UR. And, I remember meeting those guys and hearing their stuff, and I was blown away. I thought our stuff was good. But then I was like, man, their stuff was just like on a whole nother level. I think it was the track I heard called Deep Sea Dweller. It was just crazy, but it was beautiful, So I think that's when I heard that, to be honest with you, that's when I started saying, well, I want to do something different. I want to do electro, but I want to sometimes make some techno that's a little bit different. It goes a little bit more experimental and stuff. So that's when I started getting more into that. But Drexel stood out, man.
Yeah. And then the earlier stuff, like Clarence G and stuff. Also,
now that was I didn't discover that till like maybe in the 2000s. It was just like, it was something that it might be in the record stores and you had to hear it and know what it was. But at that time, everybody, that's what I didn't like at the time, because Jeff Mills was on the radio as the Wizard. And then the only thing people were playing was you had to play Model 500, Cybertron. And that was why we started making music, because Juan stopped doing it. Juan went on to do more 4/4 stuff.
Yeah.
And we were getting upset because it's like, man, is anybody else doing it? Nobody else in Detroit was doing it. It kind of stopped for a while. So when we came and we started doing it, that's when they started talking back about, it was us and Drexel, and then they started talking about, Soul Sonic Force, because they had already did it. And then it was like, it just stopped. Because you already had Asheem, you already had the freestyle stuff, but nobody from Detroit was doing anything except for us and Drexel. And I think that's what helped. Also, it was a group called, what was that? Oh God, I can't think of the label, but the guys from Rubber Dub came over here, and that's when we did our first photo session, which was, I think, about 93. It was about 93, 94.
Are you thinking of like Electron Industries, like Eon and that stuff?
Oh, yeah, it was like, they came over.
Soul Kane and
they came over to get our stuff to take it over to Europe, and that's when it caught on. And I have to thank Wilbur from Rubber Dub Records. Wilbur was very instrumental in coming over with Mike Banks and the Burton Brothers and making it happen. They intentionally said, we're going to show the world what you guys are doing. But Drexel didn't really think that way. Drexel liked being underground. We wanted to do it live and be seen. Drexel wanted to kind of stay underground, which still helped, But I never want to leave Drexel out. A lot of times people, when they talk about Drexel, they leave us out. But I personally love them.
I would never leave.
No, but you know what I'm saying. A lot of people forget that it's like, no, it's not just them when it started back. Like, you didn't have DJ Assault. You didn't have A Day. You didn't have Godfather. Any of those guys, they came later,
Yeah, for sure.
way
I
later.
remember. I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
How was it received when you guys were playing in Germany and these places in '93? Electro's always been hard to play. Like when I would go there to play, if I played something with broken beat, it would clear the
Yeah.
dance floor. Like you couldn't really do it. You know, it was
It took
like,
a while. I have to be honest. It took a while because I went over to Mayday in '95. They sent me over to DJ, and I played for the Mayday in Frankfurt. And man, it's like they were waiting for it because it had been pre-promoted beforehand. So when I got there, I had to play. I played all our stuff and a lot of electro at the time, and it was perceived pretty well. But you had like a 2 year period where it took for it to kind of build up from '93 to around '95. And then in '95, we started getting asked to, what else do you guys have and what else are you doing? So that's when I started being able to create my own electro stuff under K-1. I had a different electro thing under Alien FM, which was on 430 West, which is the Burton Brothers label. And then I had Optic Nerve. So I started doing a lot more stuff besides the stuff I was doing with AUX88. And then I left the group in '95. And it was like when we right at the pinnacle. But once I left, they kept going and they was doing really well. They ended up doing a MTV video and being on MTV in Germany and stuff. So it worked out good for everybody.
yeah,
Yeah.
you started doing the Optic Nerve stuff.
Yeah,
I
and then I
remember.
created
Yeah.
my record label in '95.
Right.
So I have to say the Burton Brothers was cool with that. They didn't mind that I started my own label, even while I'm on their label. And then eventually, once my label took off and I started traveling, I decided to leave. And it was the best thing I ever did because it gave me more confidence to make all this. I didn't just like electro, I like techno. I started liking all types of other stuff because I was hearing other music when I went over to these record stores. Getting into Anthony Rother and the DMX crew, you know what I mean? Meeting all these different people, and that was cool. I remember meeting what's the guy who made Dangerously Liaisons?
Liaisons Dangerous. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
Seb Delgado?
yeah. I met a lot
Gabby
of.
Delgado.
I met Gab Gatto. I met like
And
I used to travel a lot to I was going to Italy and Zurich, like these different places. And I'm like, wow, they digging this electro. But I was being able to hear different stuff. That's when I really started opening up. It's like, okay, I want to start moving more on my optic nerve stuff. But I always kept doing electro though. It was always fun. But people would I actually made I got more album deals. I ended up being in '95 I signed an album deal with Omnisonus,
Yeah, the
which
French
was
label, right?
BMG. Yeah, with BMG, man, and that was great. So I mean, I was able to, I guess, kind of hone my confidence. Yeah.
And then you did the Piece of Ice track, which was super.
Yeah,
That
that
was quite
actually
big. That was a pretty
that
big
was
record.
Anthony Shakir.
Oh, really?
Anthony
I
Shakir.
thought you did.
No, it was on my label,
Okay.
Anthony Shakir, in '95 when I was having issues with AUX88. He said, "You know what, Keith? You should start your own record label." I never, ever had any intention of ever thinking of having a record label. He told me what to do. We met up with Dan Bell, who was doing distribution. And Dan was like, "Hey, man, just give me your dad, turn your dad in." And I was like, "Do I got to pay any money?" No, just turn your dad in. What you want to put out, and you got to do the artwork. And I'm like, okay, I learned how to do that artwork from the Burton Brothers. Then the next thing I know, I had the first release was, I believe, it was either Piece of Ice was either the first or the second one. So Shake said, I'll put one song on one side and he'll put one on the other. And I did a mix of it. But no, I didn't do that song.
Oh,
It was
okay.
a
I didn't
hot
know
track.
that.
It was a hot
You
track
got me.
though.
Yeah,
Yep.
we've sold a lot of those in the
Yep.
shop.
It was a
back in the
hot
day.
track. Yep. And
I probably didn't know he did it, but it's been
Yep.
so many years now.
And I just saw him.
go by.
I just went to see Shake last weekend too, because he's in a home because he's stricken with a lot of
The
back
MS,
illnesses, yeah, MS and stuff. Yeah.
He's struggling pretty bad at the moment.
No,
with
he
it.
was in very good spirits when I saw him.
That's
So,
good.
and I'll
That's good.
try
He's a
to
great dude.
go see him more. But yeah, that's kind of like my mentor there. He was the one that gave me the confidence. It's like, man, you could start a label, man, and I did, and that's when I started my label in '95. And it really was. Then I think we did another one. It was called I forgot what we did. 2 tracks on the first one and the second one, and then from that point on, then I started putting out all my own stuff, and then eventually I gathered back with AUX88 and put some stuff on that label. But mostly, it's always been my releases on that label, as either electro or techno. Yeah.
So as the mid '90s was going in, and you were playing a bit more. Were you still playing a lot of electro when you were going to Europe? Because you were now doing a lot of more techno with the Optic Nerve.
When I
So what was the
started
DJ
going over
style?
to play to DJ more, I played everything. I would go
Okay.
and play Miami bass, electro, techno, house, everything, and I still DJ that way to this day. I play like a lot of acapellas with beats and stuff, Still play that way, and then I started getting asked to play live by myself, so I went over, and then that's when I recruited a few times. Black Tony went over with me to play live as well, but yeah, always been able to go. I think now as I've gotten older, it's just like I don't really like that flying. It's not for me anymore. It's a lot. When you're young, it's not a problem carrying all this stuff, but no, when
Yeah,
you
no, with
get
the
a little
gear.
bit older, you don't have the patience to be sitting in the air all that damn
You got
time.
DJ with the USB sticks.
There you go. And I get knocked for that. I'm like,
Backpack.
I don't even let that bother me with the whole USB sticks because I'm like, hey man,
No,
you wasn't around when we was carrying the crates. What are
yeah.
you
Oh
talking
my
about?
God, I got herniated
Thank
discs.
you. Not only, and I remember at one time I was stupid enough to accept gigs where I DJ'd and played live. So I'm carrying equipment and the DJ cases. That was tough. So now when it came up with that, I'm like, oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, that live stuff was a bit brutal. I didn't really get into that because of that with the gear. Didn't want to travel with all the equipment.
Yeah,
Too much of a
and
headache.
it was like, and Europe, they can get things for you. And it's best to have your own gear because you can get set up and get everything going. But going through customs and stuff getting dropped, it was a lot of equipment got messed up. So after a while, through royalties, and that's one thing the Burton brothers was good about. They paid us on time or whatever. It was times we were coming home and we would have gear just sitting there that had never even been opened yet, that we had just purchased. And then we usually purchase like two. So we have one for the live and then one for the studios. And that's one thing I really appreciate that we did with when I was in AUX88. We all had separate studios. We were one time we was in one building and we had three studios. So that way everybody could work because we started realizing that we couldn't work together well. And I know it sounds weird, doesn't it? But it's like, no, sitting in there with other people, it would just we get into arguments. No, don't do it this way, don't do it that way. So we started doing, you work on that and then go somewhere else and then leave it for somebody else to finish up and put their parts to it. And that's how we really carried on from there. Just to hand things off. But what we really realizing was like certain people were honing their talent. Certain people can do this, the strings, bass lines, drums, all that type of stuff, which helped us a lot.
What was your main sequencer of choice back in the day? What did you like when you were making electro or techno? Were you using the same equipment?
Actually, right there. That's my very first that old Mac SE right there. I was using
that little thing.
I was using Performer. It's a sequencer called Performer, the original Performer
Okay.
program.
Wow.
That's what I was using to
I have
sequence.
to take a photo of that. We'll edit in.
Yeah, and
so
then I
people can
had
see
with
it.
the old square
Wow.
Macintosh, and then I on live shows I took the Kawai Q80 for live shows to take that overseas. But
You never messed with the SP12, the emus and stuff.
nope,
like that?
never.
No?
That was another thing. We never owned a 909 or 808,
What?
SP12, any of that.
So how do you do bass magnetic? There's no 808 in that
Hey
track.
man, on that track we used a
9 or something.
It was a Roland Gray. It's a gray drum machine that had a nice kick, and we mixed it with the R8. I think the R8.
That's crazy. There's no 808 on that. I never would have thought
It
that.
is, but
yeah, you said, but
see,
sample
we stack.
808.
That's one thing about us that we got really good with stacking sounds. That's how we always had a nice full drums or whatever. It was usually two kicks, and we just made them more and compressed them and stuff.
And we're using like samples. What was the sample that everybody was using? I forgot the number. the SA900.
Yeah, we had, but mostly for samples, all we did was sample our voices to do for choruses or whatever, and just, that was about it. We never really did any type of samples because Tommy was the drum machine programmer, so we always programmed all the drums. But we would take and have I even still was using iron. We might have 3 drum machines running together almost with the same patterns, and just we got good at. That was what Positronics BJ was really good at EQing, and he got so good at it that kind of honed our own sound. And then after a while, we just started putting up the same patches that we made, And sometimes we used Another keyboard we used a lot. We used the Juno 106 a lot.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
one of the
that was the
classics.
keyboard of choice.
You know, a lot of people also don't know, like when you're making music, like when you do techno 4/4 or you make electro, like electro, just when you're actually making electro, there's a lot more space to work with sounds and
Yeah.
kind of also enjoy. I've definitely made some electro
Hmm.
tracks over the years, and you just have, it's just a different way of working almost with sound wise
Yeah.
and because of the space between the beats
Hmm.
and not having
Yeah.
that extra
And,
kick on the
and you
floor.
gotta have, like you said, you gotta have space in there, and you have to have. Our thing was this: if we could make the track, come back the next day and hit start, and you getting into it, then we know we made something good. You know what I mean? It was like, and we made sure we had to have great bass lines. It wasn't just the drums; it was the bass lines. We really thought that was really important, so we concentrated a lot on that. But coming from, you know, my first recordings was at Metroplex Studios, and you there with the king. You know what I mean? So you got to bring it. That's why I like and I miss that time, because if you didn't have something sound good, they'll let you know, like, hey man, that sucks. You got to do better. You ain't on this. You ain't on a level that would warrant us to put that record out. That's what Juan would say. So work on it. Yeah.
So the electro thing started to get bigger in the early 2000s, if you remember. Like it started to come into its own, and then there were like not newer producers because he was around, but people like Carl Finlow who were adding like a whole new dimension to electro and really taking
Yeah.
it to the next level.
Yeah. It was
Anthony Rother and
especially Rother,
yeah,
uh,
Rother, Finlow.
Carl Finlow, which I had ended up meeting those guys, and then that's when it started for DJ Assault, because they were doing a lot of mixtapes, and then they started the Ghetto Tech and Godfather. Around that time, it was like every week was a new track with a new phrase, about my baby's mama or whatever. That caught on. But what was cool was it was kind of like they were rehashing what was done in Miami, because they were taking a lot of our beats and sampling them or copying them and just putting a phrase over the top of
It's
them.
like Dance Mania meets Miami,
Right,
right?
right. And I love that with Mike Bankston, because they put a stop to a lot of that, because these guys was putting all these mixed CDs out, and they were selling them in the stores. And it was just like, you can't just take their tracks and make these mixed CDs and not want to pay these guys. So they started really getting on those guys, like, you can't make those, and trying to sample our stuff. And it's like, you got to pay. I didn't even know about it for a while. Then Dave Clark, that was when Dave Clark came along. When Dave Clark came with the with that series,
Yeah, that
that helped
K7
a lot.
electro.
That
Yeah,
that took us to a whole nother
yeah,
level.
that was a
Yeah.
because also Electric Clash was blowing up and then people were
Hmm.
mixing this stuff at the same time.
Another one, I can't leave them out. I can't leave Adam and Nicole out from Adult,
Oh yeah, yeah.
which their group originally, the group they were in was called La Car. They were doing like an Electro Clash, one of the first. I've traveled a lot with them. Very good musicians and great live performers. Adam and Nicola from Adult. And then, like I said, when we had Ectomorph, which is Brendan, it was
Yeah, of
another
course,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, so it was a lot of stuff coming out of Detroit, but at the same token, at that time, like you said, when we started getting into the 2000s, that was more along the lines of the Godfathers with the Ghetto Tech battling Dance Mania in Chicago and all the juke stuff.
We did a gig in the early 2000s
Yeah.
together in Leeds. I don't know if you remember that. We played like around the New Year's. It was you, Black Tony was there. I'm not sure
Oh
if Tommy was
yeah,
there.
I think we played live. I think
Yeah,
we played
yeah. I played on
live.
the show with
Yeah,
you guys. We
yeah,
were hanging
yep,
out. I remember
yep,
it
yep,
was around Christmas or like New
yeah,
Year's or something
yeah.
back in like
Because yeah, that was. I remember that. I remember
and
that.
that's when Electro was like you could feel it now was getting it was definitely
Yeah,
peaking.
yeah,
Not I don't know if it was peaking, but it
yeah.
was the time.
Well, it was, and they by then they had big rooms for electro, and they had the techno room, and that type of stuff.
Yeah,
That's when for me I liked it, but I was just like, well, why we gotta be in a separate room, because they
yeah.
started separating everything. When it's like whenever I DJ, even when we played live, we still played techno. Even when I was doing electro, we always did like a 4/4 track or you know Chicago house type tracks. We used to do one of Larry Heard's tracks. What's that? Can you feel it? That track. We used to do that live all the time, and we're supposed to be playing for an electro crowd. They loved it.
Another person we should mention, just honorable mention, is Cisco from Advent. I mean, he
Oh
was making
man, you know
amazing
what?
electro
I
stuff
can't
too.
forget Cisco.
I
That's
mean, I
Cisco's
gotta
my
mention
guy.
it because
Yep,
he
Cisco's
made
my
such
guy.
amazing electro records. On
Yep.
those combination research,
Yep.
he'd have the 2-4 tracks
Yep.
and always that end electro track that's ridiculously
what I hate
good.
about sometimes you do these interviews. You just, you know, you're excited, but at the same time you leave somebody out. I can't leave Cisco out.
No, there's no way.
Cisco's always been a cool guy and made great music.
Yeah.
Cisco's always been a cool gentleman who made great music. Same thing with Dave Clark too. Dave Clark has always been very promoting, you know, like a person who's always promoting it and promoting Detroit and other groups. Because I have to give him a shout out for that studio.
Dave
K7.
is a natural with the radio show type.
Oh yeah.
Way of promoting people.
Yeah. And like I said, you can't leave out Anthony Rother, man.
Yeah.
And Carl Finlow. Carl Finlow's kind of unsung. You know, Carl Finlow made some good music. We did a couple of tracks together, and he was very easy to work with.
He's still making great stuff too. Yeah, he's still on fire. So what is your take throughout the 2000s now, up until now? A lot of times when I hear electro, it's just a copy of you guys and Drexy. It's been so oversaturated with people copying you, and it's always nice when people copy in the beginning, but when they just beat it to death, I have a hard time with finding a lot of original sounding electro. That's
it's more it's darker. They try to make it darker and they slow it down, I guess, a little bit more. It's more dystopian. They trying to make it more darker, and sometimes dark is cool if it's funky. But when it's dark and it gets to monotony, because a lot of people don't like to do vocals. That was why we got started doing vocals. Because, you know, electro, techno, whatever, it's all loopy and it can get monotonous, but you got to find ways in which you get the right groove that it takes you somewhere else. You never think about it being played on. It's almost a hypnotizing thing about it, but it shouldn't be monotonous, because monotonous makes you feel like, okay, it's time to take that track off, you know. But I've heard some good stuff, man. I really have, but I think they've gotten better qualities wise. The sound of their music is really good. But like you say, there's so many, I think more so Drexciya clones than anything. And it's like, you can tell the difference. Like Drexciya had a sound that you can tell when it's Drexciya or Doppler effect. You can
say the same with you guys, though. I mean, I hear it. I'm like another Aux 88 one. There's another Drexciya one. Because I'm going to Juno, and it's there's tons of electro that comes out in the last years, right? I mean, it's been big again, right?
Yeah.
And there's definitely been a resurgence, but the resurgence, everybody's on the 90s thing. So whether it's techno or electro, everybody's like on this kind of cyclical.
Right.
I always venture back to, I think Jeff Mills had a vision and he did cycle 30, if you remember, which was about the 30-year cycle. And right now, that everybody's kind of on this mid 90s. They're changing the production and pushing the production to what it is now. But they're still basing a lot of the sounds of what was going on back then, right?
It's good. I feel it's a compliment whenever I hear stuff, and it's like, I love it that you can still tell the difference, though. It's like, okay, they sound like us, or they sound like some stuff I did, but there's a difference. And I love that I know when I hear a Carl Finlow track, because it's a distinctive vocals, if he does vocals, his drums. I know when I hear an Anthony Rother track, his drums, his vocal. I know when I hear a Keith Tucker track, it's my vocals and it's the drums and the bass lines. When I hear an AUX88 track, it's all the same thing. But some of these people, you can just listen and be like, okay, they right there, but they ain't quite got it yet. You know, because sometimes it's not just about you have all the gear, man. It's like what you put into the gear. And a lot of times these guys just think they can just make the stuff super quick. I never did that. Even to this day. Every once in a while, I can make up a track super fast if I'm really in a mood. But a lot of times, that stuff we did, man, it took hours just to do.
That's how I am.
Because you're very
meticulous
about your sound.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it might not happen for you in a day. It might take 2 or 3 days. You're just working on the drum track. But now they can do it so quick and easy. And sometimes when you hear the music, you be like, yeah, I can tell. They just threw it together. What do you think about this? It's like, it sounds like you just threw it together. It can always be better.
As an artist that has an original sound, what do you do when you have a sound that you want to stick with, but everybody's copying it, right?
Yeah.
And like you gotta and then
you know what?
You gotta go look for another sound because they're blowing your sound up and it's making your next records not sound, standing
Well,
out
what I
anymore,
try to
right?
do, what I try to do is I try to listen to other things and I try to bring something a little bit different the next time, but while still keeping my sound. That's why I like that I can switch from electro to techno, and sometimes I add both in together. Just so just to for my sanity, because I don't listen to a lot of my music. A lot of people say you don't play a lot of your stuff in your set. It's like I really got to get over this. Hard for me to mix my own stuff. I just don't, because I've heard it so much, and but I'm getting better at that. But yeah, I feel you on that. But it's like I don't really think about that. I just be like, it gets to a time, if you really want to be honest with yourself, you got to do something a little bit different. You got to say, hey, that's why I like listening to other styles of stuff. I'm like, okay, I want on this track, I want a string sort of like that. So I try to look for it and find it and try to, edit something that's similar to it. I'm still blown away that I can still hear something. As much bad music as it is out there, I always hear something that motivates me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep,
It's the same. You got to dig
always.
deeper because
Yep,
there's so
yep,
much music and
yep.
it's a flooded
Yeah.
market.
And
But
it's usually through like I know Jeremiah Shaw here. He's a young guy that's doing stuff out of Detroit. He hits me to a lot of stuff. He just started traveling a lot, and Jeremiah comes over here. It's like my young Jedi. I've showed him how to do electro and stuff. And it's nice to have people be like, "Hey, have you heard this?" And I'm like, "Damn, no, I haven't heard this." What's the group begin with an E that sounds like Drexia? What is that guy? The Exaltics. The Exaltics have come close to a lot like Drexia. I like that guy. But there comes a time where you still have to make it your own.
yeah,
It's not a knock. I'm not trying to knock him or knock anybody, but you have to make it your own. If you're going to, because I used to hear it all the time. People say, "Man, you trying to sound like Cybertron or Model 500." It was a compliment at first, and then it got to a point where it was like, yeah, but I got to create my own sound. You know what I mean? And you need to create something that people can talk about that's all yours instead of somebody else's. But I like the Exalted stuff. I play some of their stuff. Another group that gets lost in it, the Grand Poobahs. I thought what they were doing was
yeah,
unique
man.
too.
Yeah. Paris they done some
Paris
great
is
stuff.
Paris is a
So,
genius on writing.
I mean, I was talking to Oliver Way, who works with
hmm
Paris,
hmm
just 2 weeks ago, and I was like, "How the hell was Sandwiches not a pop record in America? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
that should have been
It was
huge,
a big
right?
song. It was a
Like
big song in the city.
catchy, something like that was it should have been a. I mean, it was on Jive. How did they not push this record to
Just
blow
something
up?
about the United States, they never wanted
Yeah,
to move that electronic stuff.
no, no,
He's another one, another unsung hero to me, Aaron Carl. He died very
yeah,
young, but Aaron Carl was a genius because he can melt between electro, house, and techno. He was very good. He made a lot of unique music. But yeah, it's a lot of guys out there. I like a lot of stuff that's coming out of anything that comes out of the clone camp, man. All those
yeah.
labels they got, Dexter and all those
Yeah,
other
yeah,
groups.
the
Those are
fast
those are
scrapple,
good.
I,
Yep.
I love the Ultradyne stuff that Dennis
Yes.
and
Yes.
Frank are
Now
doing,
this stuff
right?
was
That
unique.
stuff's amazing.
That stuff was unique.
I love it. I saw them
Yeah.
play live 2 years ago with
Yeah.
Trezor and Ohm, and I was blown away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just the way they can.
Can't leave those guys out because this stuff's original. And
You're
then
right.
Alex, who used to
You're
work
right.
also with Dennis, is
Yeah.
a really good friend, and stuff they were doing then was also great. Like
Yeah.
just
And
really
then
experimental, weird.
now you got DJ Stingray. Because Stingray
Yeah,
is playing,
Stingray
he can do
also.
any type of electro
Yeah,
set. He could
Sherrod
do
is
something
also
that's geared towards Europe, and then he can turn around and do something that's geared towards, the States or whatever. And then he still plays a little bit of everybody's stuff. That's what I like about Stingray.
Stingray's the big man on campus when it comes
Yes.
to electro DJs.
Yes.
I mean, he's
Yes.
the
Man,
top
I've been
dude,
knowing, I
He's a good
remember
friend.
Stingray when he used to work at Buy Right Records here years ago. I used to buy records from him and stuff when he was working there.
It's amazing because his career came later, but he's been around. So he's first generation Detroit.
Yep.
with
Kenny
Nick, so.
Dixon, man. I was just talking to him a few weeks ago. Moody man. He really knows the whole all he can put the pages of this whole electro scene. He can paint it better than anybody because he was around during that time.
Oh, really? I thought he was more the house
Nope,
jazz.
he was in the motorcycle
Wow.
clubs. They originally started playing our stuff in motorcycle clubs and strip clubs. That's where they used to play our stuff at. And then all of a sudden DJs got hip to it. They started playing it on the radio. And then that helped us. But they finally started getting with Submerge, 430 West, and all the labels that was under Submerge with Direct Beat, UR, and everything. They ended up getting people who they were flying to the West Coast, to Miami and everything, and they were giving out white labels and making sure all the top DJs had them. That's when we started seeing the rise of Detroit. And I have to give it to one guy was Keith Butts. Keith Butts was sent by Direct Beat and Mike Banks to take our stuff to out there on the West Coast with Easy E them and all that type of stuff. And then that's why we started getting more play and overseas. So, and Dave Clark, like I said, I keep thinking I keep forgetting about Dave Clark, because that compilation really sealed it, because it wasn't like people always think like, oh, we just jumped on the scene and everything happened. No, it didn't. It took a while, like you said. And once the 2000s came around and you did have the Godfathers, the DJ Assaults, and all those type of people, Detroit in Effect, we were still doing stuff, but it was time to change. So we ended up doing stuff like we did a album called Mad Scientists, which was, a lot of people don't know, it was kind of a homage to Drexciya. That's what that album was made for, to get homage to them. And then after that, we did Black Tokyo. That was the last project I was in, I believe. No, that wasn't. That was the last album project. No, it wasn't. Black Tokyo, we grabbed two women from Japan to do some electro techno, a style that we created ourselves. It's kind of a bridge between Oriental, like Yellow Magic Orchestra, and Kraftwerk. That's exactly how we described it. Then we did our last album, Counterparts, which all original members of AUX88, and that was about, I think that was about 5-6 years ago, and that was it for AUX88. I don't know what they're doing now, but I will say this. I think everything we did, people can go back and you listen to those albums, because there's always something different on it. Every electro track does not sound the same.
I didn't realize you weren't in AUX 88 now.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. They always say, oh man, I didn't know it. No, I left, it's got to be about 7 years ago. I've left twice.
Were you ever touring with Juan, with Model 500? Did you ever
Yeah,
in on that?
actually, the very first show that Juan Atkins ever did was in '95, when I was still in AUX88. It was a show we did at an art gallery downtown with Tommy Hamilton, Mike Banks, myself, and Juan Atkins. And we did Technicolor, Clear, and something else. It was 3 tracks. And then when he did his second show was at the festival in Detroit. We were supposed to be doing it. We programmed his whole show that was an hour. Then we stopped doing that, and now he has Mako from Detroit in Effect doing his shows. But we were the first ones who programmed his shows for him. So that was, to me, that was a great plus. But it's like, I used to always tell Juan, and he didn't really like it. I was like, man, you're great at making this music, but we do this live and we know what we're doing. And, you know, we was kind of like bumping heads on that. He was kind of like, no, I need to have this done. And we're like, but we programming it from scratch. You know, he's like, very quick, I gotta have this done, gotta have that done, or whatever. And we were like, nah, man, well, we like to do things a certain way. And, you know, we ended up bumping heads, and then we were just like, nah, you just go ahead. And we didn't want to do that. But at one time, they were trying to do a show with Doppler Effect, AUX88, and Model 500. They were trying to do a tour, and I thought that would have been cool, but it just didn't happen. And like I said, I'm glad that Juan has Mako from Detroit in Effect now is doing this programming and stuff.
It's hard working with other people.
Yeah, it is.
You know, you can do like one-offs, but when you're touring and you're together,
when it's an idol of yours, and then like sometimes it's hard to get people to realize you're good at this, but sometimes you're not good at this. You have to let somebody else do it. You know what I mean? And it was like when we were programming, it was just like he was never around. It's like, hey man, we're finna program, we're gonna do all these songs, and he's never around. We had to do all of it. And then when we did, he would be like, okay, we're only gonna do 3 songs. We're like, no, man, we gotta do an hour. That type of stuff. So now he's got it. He's got it. He got the right people, and it's all good. But at that time, it's like we want to get our money too. We want to get paid. So happy for Mako. And the Cybertron show that they have now is amazing.
I love the last record, the Parallel Shift.
Oh yeah, that was sweet. Yeah, that was sweet.
Great record.
Now that's what I will say, that Juan Atkins has always took things and just took it and just go step for step
Yeah.
and just does something different. You know, I always model myself after him anyway. My music, I always try to do stuff that's similar in his vein, but it's like that I think that people can listen to later and be like, oh wow, I didn't know he did that. That's why I'm so happy about I was telling you about the Jeff Mills album that I did.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Um,
also the I didn't know about that until recently.
yeah. A lot of
That's
people
great
don't, man,
ambient.
and
Because
it's
it's
a
not
great
on
album.
vinyl, you know, I got
I
to put it
know,
in
I know,
physical
I know, I
format,
know.
you know,
Oh
it still
yeah,
catches people's attention in record stores. People talk more when it's
yeah,
physical format, you know.
yeah. It's
So
like I said, those are the great times where like when you know when you get a email or a call and you look and say, oh wow, Jeff Mills calling me. You feel me? That's great. Or when, you know, like Anthony Rogers send you a message like, hey man, I want you to be on this track or whatever. Could you help? That's when I feel great because I can do what it is that I do. They ask me to do what I do, not saying, hey, I gotta do this and do this. I don't have to go through that anymore. I love that. But I do get tired. I'm one of the people that will answer people back and I gotta stop doing that. I answer people back who I've never heard of before. Like, hey man, I want you to put a track on a new label, and I'm like, man, I'm sorry, I can't do that. And sometimes it's best to not answer people back because then you start getting into silly arguments with people.
yeah.
You know, it's like, well, you think you're better than us or something? No, I don't think I'm better than you. I'm just saying, I'm at this point. I don't need to do anything for your label. I got my own label, so I'm going way too far explaining it. You know what I mean?
It's
Because I
called
love it.
politely declining.
When I should just politely
I do,
decline
you know, I do it all the time. You know,
or don't even answer back. But I've had people just recently just hit me up and it's like, man, or fans think they're doing you a favor. Hey man, did you know they use your sample on this? They use a vocal on this or whatever. I'm like, nah, I didn't. I don't really get all upset about that type of stuff. I'm not even trying to look into it unless it becomes a big hit. That's other than that, I could care less. Then all of a sudden the message is, well, we have this new label and we need a track from you. Can't do it, buddy. Can't do it.
so let me ask you this. Why do you think that, especially with electro music, right? Why is it that hip hop has never embraced this kind of electronic music in America where wouldn't
Hmm.
this be the coolest shit if there was like electro mixed with fucking hip hop?
But
And
here's the funny
like
part.
I would be probably back in listening to rap again like I did in the 80s, you
Here's the
know?
funny part. When I brought up that word regional, it's still a regional thing. They call it the Aretha Franklin amphitheater now, which we used to call Shane Park. I'll give you a perfect example. A couple of years ago, me and my wife went to see Rakim, Run DMC was actually there, and you got totally old school concert, everybody wearing Adidas and everything. But before any rap group comes out, the DJs are playing in that area. They're playing "Alleys of Your Mind" by Cybertron. The crowd goes fucking nuts. They love it. It's a regional thing. And I told Juan this. I said, man, do you know you should be on some of these gigs with like Rakim them? I think they would go for it because it kind of was at the same
Yeah,
time,
yeah, yeah.
originally. And he was like, yeah, I don't know, man. I said, well, you should have came down because they played Nucleus. What was that? Push the Button. People went crazy. And I was just like, and I told the same thing to Ben from Nucleus. And he was like, man, I didn't know that. But you probably couldn't do that. You might be able to do that in LA, to be honest with you. But it would have to be like Professor X.
But
You could
you think the new kids would be into that, or just the older school people? So the
it,
people
it
that were
might
there
that
from the
might be
80s,
that
right?
might be an old school thing,
Yeah.
but like I say, I don't play hip hop in my sets. I really don't. That's too slow. But I
Yeah.
know regionally when I went to those concerts like that. But I noticed that with every concert in Detroit. Like we went to see Maxwell. And, they have these DJs that play beforehand. And that's R&B. If they play a classic track like Shari Vari or Good Life, people go crazy. But that's a regional thing. So, I think it still could work because the young kids is very influential. Not influent. They could be influenced easily. All you have to do is just give them something and they go for it. You know what I mean? If the top people put out something like that, they go for it. But they want to keep it cheesy or whatever. But I just think people just need to have the balls to just do it. Just go ahead and do it.
Eh,
Yeah. But you're right. That could just be me thinking from my heart, old school or whatever. But even when I've taken my daughters to different things and let them hear the music, they like it. And it's like, but yeah, but I thought this was supposed to be what they call EDM. No, this is not EDM. They got it all messed up with all these different titles to this music or whatever. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
what we do is funk. It really is. They should have called it electro funk. It's what a day called it from what's his label in Detroit. I forgot what his label was called, but a day called his style of electro funk, because that's exactly what it is. And if you mix that with anything like any kind of funky hip hop or whatever, play that, people usually like it. But I don't know, it's just maybe me thinking with my heart. But I know whenever I've done stuff and young people been around, they seem to like what I play, even when you're playing some old school stuff. But that's a tough one when you say hip hop, because it's tempos, two different tempos, unless you slow it down, you know? Yeah. I don't know if I really answered your question on that, but yeah.
No, I'm just, it did for a degree. And what about Electro? Do you think there's a lot of space for innovation in this music still? Because it's a very formulaic, you got to have the thing is you're supposed to have the 808. You're not really supposed to use a 909 or other drum machines. And there was a whole there's a whole broken beat techno thing that's, like.
I think I call it more what's more popular to me is what I call minimal electro. How they have minimal techno music, there's minimal electro. When you listen to Doppler Effect, they had those metallic type beats. It really ain't an 808. It's just metallic type sounds on it. I think it's going more towards that way. And it's more minimalistic with a little simple bass line, but with some very great pads on it or whatever. It's going towards that, which is what they created. But I really don't see what else you can do to it unless you do like Model 500 did. He actually had the same singing over it. You might be able to do that.
Yeah, I think like the most innovative stuff I've heard in the last years was the last Ultradone stuff. It's very industrial. It's more
now see, their stuff is
industrial,
I like the way it's
mixed with
recorded.
electro.
It's recorded very well too. Like it can get noisy sounds, but they're crystal clean at the same time. I won't say noisy sounds, but dirty, rough type sounds, but it's clean.
But it also has a very industrial vibe. Yeah. It's not just like this 808 bass.
But here's the thing too. I think what would have helped by now, isn't it amazing that they still haven't put them in any movies? Any of the music in the movies, all this shit fits perfect.
I know.
Especially sci-fi movies.
Yeah.
Any of the superhero movies. Yeah. All of this. It's like, come on, man. And that really that was always been my dream. I wanted to do soundtracks.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't really see where I can see that with Ultradyne and like I said, and it's still, I hate to say it, Doppler Effect to me is still the one that's innovating. Their stuff still sounds, when Gerald does something, it's just like, it stands out and it's just artsy to me, but it's also like, man, it's like you can lose yourself. You know what I mean? Like, it just seemed like it should be in a movie. That's where I wish that it would go next, if they would start just putting it in the movies, man.
If they're putting it in the movies, they have some Hollywood musician doing it. That's a whole closed circuit. They're not trying to let people like us in there making music.
Especially when you think about they're still doing orchestras and all that stuff.
I mean, I can't even think of anybody in techno that's really been in as a person that's made a lot of music for movies or whatever.
Yeah.
Some people might get lucky with a track in a movie or something, but that doesn't really happen too often. True.
But it is, you're right. It's like, but every time you think it's went just about as far as it can go, somebody's going to do something.
That's true.
But it's usually what they do. They're just taking two styles and mix them together. You remember when Basic Channel came up with their whole sound? It was like, well, it's really kind of reggae, dude. People didn't realize that. Like, no, it is. It's like it's the same thing. Just and that was another one. I have a new EP that I finished up called Augmentations. It's my style of minimal. Minimal is one of the hardest musics to make because it's not much there.
Right.
And you can't overdo it, but you can't.
Subtle.
Yeah, it's got to be subtle, and the pad's got to be nice. It's got to be something really nice, and I'm looking forward to that coming out. That's under my Optic nerve.
So both you and I put records out in the same year. It's 35 years now, right?
Wow.
1990. Yeah. Do you self-reflect a lot on the time and how the time has gone by, in my opinion, so fast? I can remember.
It has, but I'll tell you what the blessing has been is record stores calling me saying, "Can you repress this?" and stuff I never thought about repressing that they want. You know what I mean? So I can go back and grab that, and it's like, hey, in this particular area, like Estonia, not Estonia, but now what's that country? It's a Russian territory.
Lithuania?
Where's
Uh,
Crobot? Where they from? Croatia. Croatia. That Croatian area plays a lot of electro. And it's like, hey man, they're looking for your old track that you did called you did a EP called Teleportation. This one record store keeps asking for this, and I'm like, whatever, you know. But that's the great thing when people say, hey man, go back and press this, and then now when I press it, I can get paid for it immediately instead of just letting it sit and then try to get the money for it. You know, that's what I do like. I think after all these years, and now when I'm putting out new music, it sells out immediately, meaning that the distributors just take it without really even listening to it. That's to me, that's amazing. But that just shows that I got some kind of viewership or fans out there, So that
and
one makes me feel better.
and it's proved to be timeless as music. It didn't seem that way in the 90s. It seemed like it was moving quick and like on to the
Yeah.
next thing, and
Yeah.
was going to listen to music from 1990 now in 2025, but it's
Yeah.
actually a big thing right
Yeah.
now. There's a
And
lot
then
of reissues of so
but
much
but it's
great stuff
also
from them.
cool to go back. Sometimes you know how you just did music and not this 12-inch out, this 12-inch out, might have
Yeah.
made an album. And then every once in a while you go listen and you hear something, you're like, I made that. And then you listen to it, you're
I
like,
know.
damn, what was I thinking there? That's a cool feeling
Yeah,
because
I
you're
like
like, what
that.
was
I
I
do that
thinking?
too a
And
lot. Yeah.
what was I doing when I did that? And it's like, wow, okay. That shows some growth. So I like to do that, but I also like to do the opposite and be like, that was some bullshit. It's like, wow, what was I thinking then? But I was early on, I was learning. So, and then you listen to other people's tracks, you're like, okay, they the same, you can see the same thing. Yeah, they were learning. You were learning how to EQ stuff and all that type of
Exactly.
stuff. And it's like, so now I take great pride in that I'm putting stuff out, and then I'm also can go through my whole catalog and be like, okay, I'm gonna press this up, and people want it, or ask for it. But I'll never be able to I will never do like some of these other labels, be able to press up everything. I'm not gonna do that. But that's a good feeling to know that, your records are selling.
So you have a time limit? You're retiring anytime soon, or is it till the
I've
death
been
do us
I've
part?
been thinking because I just turned 59 in May. So I was thinking like, I think I'll keep making music and doing it this way, but I don't know about the traveling. I'd rather do
Yeah.
festivals and stuff like that, or something special. But I don't know. I don't know how much longer I'll be doing it, but I have so much music that hasn't been put out.
15 more years at least. 50. You got to make
Ooh.
it 50 years, half a century.
Oh my
I'm
God.
gonna try to the end.
Okay, I
Might
got
have
you.
to venture
I got
to
you.
make some interesting stuff.
Well, think about it.
Later
I mean,
in
you
20 years,
got
25
what's the
years.
guy who made the Donna Summer stuff?
Giorgio Moroder, he was actually DJing even at that
Yeah,
age.
that's what I
He
was
was like
saying. It's like
78.
I was like, wow, that's amazing. But who knows? I mean, I'm not really into buying too much gear anymore because you're just buying the same thing over. I try to tell these young guys that all the time. Oh, I gotta get this, I gotta get that. You already have that. No, but it's not okay. All right. You really don't know how to edit or make or work your machines. I was like, it's not too much coming out. I wish that one thing I have liked about being in this industry, we did during the 2000s, man, we used to get stuff from Roland. I would get stuff to test out or free gear or discounted gear. They'd give you a discount on it. I really appreciated that. But what was funny was you would get the stuff and literally all you're doing is buying the same thing all over again. I remember we got an endorsement with a propeller head for Reason, which was cool. And then we got one with Native Instruments. That was great. And at least they listened to some of the insight of what we wanted to do. Um, I know that Carl Finlow does a lot of sounds for I believe Arturia. I think that's what I like to see is like, go to these people and ask them about it. But sometimes when they do these demos and you see some of this stuff, you're like, who are these people that they getting to do it? That's why I love when I see, like the Carl Finlows or Anthony Ryder get to do sounds and stuff like that. That makes me feel good. It might not happen for me, but it makes me feel good. But I get so, I know I'm going off the subject. I get so perturbed when I be seeing some of these demos. Get this gear, and I'll be like, that's the demo that they have for selling this gear? You got to be able to cover the gambit, man. All this
Yeah.
good music, but you know,
Yeah, I guess annoying. They don't want to pay. That's why they don't want to pay the
no,
people that have
yeah,
the talent. They want
you're
to
right.
just find
You're
somebody
right.
that might have some
Yeah,
talent.
you're
Not saying
right.
that they don't have talent, the people that do that, but
Yeah.
lesser known,
Got you.
cheaper. cheaper option. I
Right.
feel. I
But
think
you
that's
was right when you said that, like,
kind of
how
feel that
long?
way in the scene itself today with the gigs and the bookings and people.
Yeah, it just made me see, like, when you said, how much longer will I be doing this? And I was like, I thought about it and I was like, for right now, I know at least another 10 years because I have a lot more music that I want to put out that's already finished. And I'm like, oh, I don't want that stuff to just sit on my hard drive. It's got to come out regardless whether it was good or not. I just want all my music to be out before I leave this world. And then people can go back and look at the, my art palette that I painted. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of the stuff, what's going to happen, we'll probably get the notoriety when we're dead and gone. Because I don't think some of these people will be able to really recreate the stuff. I know technology has gotten better or whatever, but it's just something about, remember when you used to use those old analog machines, the feeling you got, you don't get that anymore with, when you buy a lot of the newer stuff now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm not actually. I haven't used hardware in years.
Really?
So,
Really?
I'm all in the box
Yeah,
Ableton since 2004.
Well,
I like my automation. I don't
it's
like
cool.
having to get up and turn knobs. I want to just sit.
I got you.
And I'm just
I
in.
got you.
I'm
I
like
got
deep
you.
in that computer somewhere.
Got you. That's why
like
I tried to make my
I'm like a
studio
chip
where
in
I
there.
just roll over into a certain area. And, I wanted to make it more like a sci-fi type thing where I can sit down and chill and listen to it. But
that used to be my baby, that Nord 2 over there. I mean, when I was using the hardware, I love that. I love the Nord.
Okay.
Nord that's a great one, man.
Yeah, I ended up I used to keep a lot of my stuff in cases and just pull it out. And I'm like, why am I doing this? If I don't use it at least for a year, I'll get rid of it because it's just taking up space and I don't need all that stuff anymore. My baby though right now is that sequential circuits.
Yeah, unfortunately we can't show it, but it's the Pro 1.
Sequential Pro 3. It's the Pro 3. Oh my God. That's like the sequential circuits Pro 1 on steroids.
Okay.
Because it's synced and everything. It has a sequencer built on it. So it's like, when you feeling like you really can't come up with something, you can use the sequencer on there, man.
Okay.
And they don't make this anymore, this version. But the Arturia, that's my baby. But I have a lot of different software that I'm using too. And I don't mind telling people what I use. A lot of people always say, "Oh, don't tell them what you use." Hey man, you can put 5 people in the room and they're gonna come up with the same thing.
You ever make a track just in the computer in Ableton or something like that?
I'm using Cubase. I still use Cubase, but oh no, that's what everything is. I'm using based on Cubase and my plugins and
So you've done tracks solely with plugins with no hardware ever?
I always use both.
Okay.
Always use both. Like it's never been a time that I don't use literally the Nord Lead or that sequential Pro 3. It's pretty much on every track.
Roll over here, baby.
I'm sorry. Pretty much every track. And then I got some of these the Studio Electronics SEO2 is an amazing keyboard. If you want that Drexian sound, it's right there.
It's cool.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me, man.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
And hopefully we'll celebrate 50 in 15 years from now. All right.
That's so funny. And it's funny how we would run into each other.
Back, yeah.
Remember how we would run into each other in different countries and then they have to pull us apart because we're just talking.
Yeah.
And they always be, look, man, we got to go. The cab is here. And it's like, that's cool, man.
Got you today.
Yep. Appreciate you, man.
In 15 years, we're going to do 50 years of
all right.
us,
We'll do 50.
1990 was the year.
We'll do 50. 5-0. Peace out.
Sonic Room Podcast.